Good afternoon. Today on the MPIO podcast, we have returning guest Ashley McDonald she's from the Emergency Management Association of Tennessee in a volunteer position, and I believe she's also with the Commission of Public Safety Excellence. So welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Yes, welcome back to the show. You're one of our two-timers. It's awesome for you to be back. We had you back 3 years ago in season 1, so that's been nice to have you come and talk about this particular thing that we're going to talk about for the episode. You have since moved from your previous role, and I know you're here to talk about credentialing, but let's talk about what you're doing now and your background and how you got the position you're in now.
Okay, so last we talked, I was the Public Information Officer for Rutherford County government, which was a very difficult position back in 2020, as you can imagine, with all of the things going on that particular year. But in an effort to have a little bit more flexibility, I took a job in the corporate world because my son was going into kindergarten at the time, and I wanted to be able to have more flexibility just to be with him a little bit more. And so I went into the private sector at a company called Corpay. It's a global payments company.
Now that you're civilian in a sense, before you were working for a government entity, I remember this years ago, you had first talked about this at the NAOA conference when you were on the board well over 5 years ago about wanting to get some kind of standardized credentialing for public information officers to add a little bit more to, hey, it's just anybody that could go do it. Just because you're a journalist doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good public information officer. But I see just in the last year and a half or so, that's finally came through with the Commission of Public Safety Excellence. So let's talk about the why that this was brought about, and then let's talk about CPSE.
Yeah, sure. So last time that you and I had talked, we had just submitted, I think, the proposal. So that was back in October of 2020. But what started as conversations between Master Public Information Officers and advanced PIOs through FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, we had these calls back in 2020 that were sort of like wellness check-ins. Very difficult time for PIOs. We saw a lot of PIOs actually either losing their job or, just because of the sheer, challenges that they were facing, multiple challenges that they were facing, were being burned out. They were ready to give up the job themselves. Their bosses, despite everything that they had been doing during that particular year and years prior, just didn't feel like they had been valued within the agency quite the way they should have. So that's sort of what drove this focus group and caused us to reach out to the Center for Public Safety Excellence. They are an internationally recognized accreditation and credentialing agency, and I had experience with them before on the fire side, working through the accreditation process. Also had a colleague and friend of mine who at the time was the president of the Tennessee Consortium for the Center for Public Safety Excellence for credentialing and accreditation. So used that good old networking like we know as PIOs and we're able to do, like I said, back in October of 2020. And because of COVID, it actually wasn't until November 21 where the commission met in person for the first time and reviewed the proposal. And so the commission voted on it unanimously. It moved up to the board. It was approved in December of 2020. And then we began the program development in January of 2020. Then the credential itself launched in November of 2020.
Excellent. And how many people right now are credentialed?
There are 36.
36. Okay, so there's a lot of work still got to be done, and I'm sure probably just the sheer volume of people not realizing that's even out there, I would think. It's going to take time. So let's talk about the process. Like, for our listeners who aren't aware what credentialing is, what's the process to do it?
So let's first, if you don't mind, let's kind of talk about the difference, because the most asked question I get is what's the difference between certifications and credentialing? The easiest way that I can break that down is that certifications are one component of the credentialing process. So there are many wonderful programs out there, Master PIO and Advanced PIO programs that are from several different agencies. I've myself gone through the FBI-LEEDA program, Master PIO program, and EMI. And then I'm in the fall going to go through a different one through the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. But those are only one component. So as far as credentialing, it's a more holistic approach where we do look at your education, we do look at your training, but we also look at your years of experience, your technical competencies, your professional affiliations and contributions, your community involvement, education and professional development goals, or creating professional development goals. And so instead of just, like getting a piece of paper which certifies that this individual has taken this course and passed this course, it's a third-party verification of the more comprehensive look at all of your professional accomplishments.
Okay, so which makes great sense for the term credentialing versus certification, because anybody can go through a 40-hour course. Does not necessarily mean that they are competent in that coursework or that they could do it. But like you said, you're looking at their commitment, their ongoing training, their involvement, if they're mentoring or whatever they might be doing. There's a lot more to it than at that point.
Absolutely. And I like to tell people, I can tell you all day long how wonderful I am. And I would never do that because that's just not who I am. But if somebody that you really respected came and told you, oh, Ash, let me tell you about Ashley. She's this, this, and this, then it's holds a little bit more weight than if I tell you myself, right? So that third party verification really is super important.
All right. So I know there is a cost to this because obviously you're going through an organization and the organization they've got to do some legwork involved in looking at all your documentation that you have to submit. So there's an application process, and I'm assuming you're submitting all your credentials, your certifications and all of that, and what you've done, how long you've been on the job. What's it like from that point? So you go on that CPSC site, and then what happens?
So if you go to cpsc.org/credentialing, it'll tell you everything you need to know from if you're eligible or not at this point to how you actually go about it. It has a lot of great frequently asked questions and different things like that. You also have access to the 36 current MPIOs who have already been through this, so you can get in touch with them, including myself, to help you get through that process, to mentor you through that process. But yes, so now we actually have it a little bit easier than those of us who went through the process earlier. We actually have it automated. So you don't have to fill out a Word document and then submit it via SharePoint. You actually have it a little bit easier as far as that goes. But when you submit, you will pay an application fee when you submit, and that's $300 for your initial application fee. The program you to a peer reviewer or peer reviewers, depending upon if they're going to team review. And then that peer reviewer will go through your application, will contact you, will likely ask you some questions based on the professional development goals that you've outlined in your application. They will look to make sure that everything that was required for you to submit has been submitted. If there are any deficiencies or they think that there is room for an area or the other, they'll guide you through that. And then ultimately it goes before the commission to be voted on, and we vote on those monthly.
Okay. And is there another fee? Is there an annual fee, or is there something that happens after a couple of years that there's an additional fee to maintain your credentialing?
Yes, so not an annual fee, thank goodness, but there is a renewal fee, but you renew every 3 years, and it's a little bit reduced in price. It's $300 for the renewal fee, and it's a much less robust application process as your initial, as you can imagine.
Right, because you've already met the basic criteria. It would probably just be updating your professional development goals, things of that nature, position
right, and making sure
and
that you're still making contributions and still involved with your community and different things like that. Right.
So the credentialing itself, can agencies get their PIO's credentials, or is this an individual responsibility?
So I'm going to answer that in two different ways. So with my commissioner hat on, I'm going to say that we love it when agencies support, their personnel and support that credentialing piece. There are several agencies that actually have that written into their plans for promotions and different things like that. There are several fire departments that do that for fire officers. If you become a fire officer within the department, you have 3 years to achieve, your professional designation. I would love to see, I know I speak on behalf of my whole commission to say that, but the groundwork of all of the application process is certainly on the individual, because they know themselves the best. They know what they have, what they've accomplished over the years. They know their years of experience. They know what they want those continued professional development goals to be. So as far as the agencies, the financial investment in the career path of the person who has that role within their department, they can support in that way, but it really is up to the individual to, meet those requirements that are outlined in the application.
Is there anything else you want to add about the credentialing that the individuals would like to know that there's an additional benefit to them? Because, certifications are one thing, credentialing, it says more. In my mind, it does.
Yeah, so I will say this, and I need to back up just a little bit because, when we did have this conversation the last time, and we talked about the reasons why, we did set a gold standard basically for for being a public information officer. In order to become an internationally recognized or internationally credentialed public information officer for everyone. And so, the people who have been in the job for years and years and years have gone through all the trainings, have all the certifications, have met all the technical competencies. We felt that it was very important during program development to create a category or a pathway for those individuals, or that they didn't have to necessarily go back and write to all the technical competencies, and the reference materials and different things. For those types of individuals who qualify based on 4 different pathways, which you can find when you go to the website. And then category B is more of a points-based, which is also, you get the points based on your education or your training and your experience. But I will say, and we have had more people, I think, through category A so far, but I will say this not only, shows your agency how valuable you are. But going back to that very initial conversation when it started this whole thing, I think even more so than that, at least for me as an individual, the intrinsic value that it brought, that validation of you really have accomplished this throughout your career. And, there's something to be said for that. You're coming as a package deal when you're applying for a position now, and you have the third-party verification of that. It's an enhancement, I guess, to your resume, but more so than that, it's not you saying that you've done all these things. It's an actual agency that has done the legwork to verify that everything that you have said is correct.
Right, and I agree. I think if you're changing jobs and you're looking and you're in the interview process, something like having credentialing coming from a third-party organization, they have a lot more weight than just somebody that went through FBI-LEEDA, Master PIO, and somebody else's Master PIO and the FEMA course, because you probably already did most of that to get the credentialing, but then you've got that third-party organization saying, hey, they've really done this and they're still involved.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to say, too, so historically, the Center for Public Safety Excellence has been, involved with fire services and emergency services. And so the PIOs were kind of groundbreaking in that now civilians are eligible to apply for this professional designation, but also multiple disciplines. So it's not just, your fire PIOs or your law enforcement, it's military, it's quasi-government, city and county government, it's, American Red Cross PIOs. I like to tell people that Disney World has a PIO, and we really do hope that they will apply for it one day. But it's that, and we still have some work to do there, because I do think that people, when they think Center for Public Safety Excellence, think, oh, well, that's just for fire PIOs or that's for just emergency services. And it's totally not. It's open to all of these different disciplines. And that's full-time or part-time, volunteer, contracted. Is there? Just ask, because, there are different ways that we can answer that question based on, instead of being based on a yes or no, like we can take in all the information, the factors that are around your position there at the agency.
I completely understand. Ashley, is there anything else about the credentialing process you'd like like the listeners to know?
Yeah, I would just say, if you get on the website now and you look under eligibility criteria and you look at the application, you're like, man, really qualify at this point. Don't be discouraged. Use that as a career roadmap. We talked earlier about setting that gold standard, and there really aren't a lot of standards written around public information officers and what kind of pathways they should take, as they excel in their career, as they advance in their career. And so just use this as a roadmap opportunity for your career in that role. And again, mentors, look up the current 36, contact me, however we can help. We just really want to grow this professional designation in the field. It really is important to us to do that, because we work so hard to get here, and we want to see all of these PIOs succeed and get that credential for themselves.
I agree. I think this is, when you originally brought this up years ago, I thought, what a great idea, what an opportunity for the industry, for it to have that one extra level that lawyers have credentialing. They went through the bar and so on. This is that next level for the public information officer to have that designation, that they're certified, that they're credentialed beyond just taking a course.
Absolutely. And you get a nice little lapel pin. I'm sporting mine today. Or you can choose to get a uniform bar, depending upon if you're sworn or not. So, and then you obviously get a digital signature for your email too, and a nice, very nice certificate. And you get recognized on the website as well. So if that's not enough to convince you.
Well, you know what? And the cost, I don't think that cost is really a hindrance if you think about what that offers you. And especially if you decide, and this is so common in public information officers, they tend to move from one position to another. They go from agency to agency, and having that extra credentialing certainly gives you that X level to move up, and you're that level above the other competition that's in the interview process. I think that's really great to have.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point too about maybe like the cost. You're credentialed for 3 years. A lot of times you're paying double that for a course that you take, for a certificate, a 5-day course that you take. So just think about that. I mean, really weigh, that the financial investment that you're making for yourself.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, it's really not that expensive if you were to break it down over the years that you get to hold that designation.
Absolutely. Yeah. The cost is, if you spread it out over the 3 years, is really not that much. So yeah, and it's certainly, I have gone to some courses that spend close to $600 and gone, what did I just go to? Because it wasn't that great. So, you think of it that way. Yeah, we all have had one of those, right?
Absolutely.
All right, Ashley, anything else you want to add about credentialing?
I think that's it, other than just to say, I would like to open up, to your listeners, if they do want to contact me, if they have any further questions that weren't answered today, please feel free to contact me, connect with me on LinkedIn or email me, and I'm sure you can provide that to them. But happy to help in any way that I can.
And I will add all that into the show notes. Ashley, let's go to some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Texting or talking?
Texting.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Adult drink of choice?
Ooh, dirty martini with Belvedere vodka and blue cheese stuffed olives.
That's a good
very
one.
specific,
I like that.
But
that's okay. You got to have the dirty martini with the blue cheese stuffed olives. They have to
That's
be.
right.
I agree. What would be your superpower if you could have one?
I would like to be invisible, I think.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
I'm a little bit of a rule follower, but I've found later in life that probably asking for the forgiveness is the route I would go.
You would most want to travel to?
I would love to go to Greece.
Greece is beautiful, yeah. First celebrity crush?
First celebrity crush. Travis Tritt would have probably been my first celebrity crush, as weird as that sounds, but he was very popular back when I was younger. And I actually got a chance to meet him at the Nashville airport, and he signed my Troll notebook. He signed it with love to Ashley from Travis Tritt.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Guilty pleasure food?
Cool. Bacon.
Oh, bacon. Isn't that
Who doesn't
great?
love
That's
bacon?
awesome.
Yes.
Is there a person that the historical figure that if you sat down and had coffee with him, living or dead, who would it be?
Cool. That's a good one. I think I probably would like to sit down and talk to Laura Bush. I think for me, she was just such a polished individual. And I know that's really hard, in a position like that, or to be married to someone who's in a position of that level. And I just think she just always just had this like kind and caring, sweet, compassionate nature. At least, that was my perception of her. And so I'd just like to ask her how she did it. How does she maintain her composure through all that? Yeah,
she definitely was a very polished person. I agree with you. Ashley, what final thoughts? What key points would you like the listeners to take away from the interview today?
Just mainly that, even if you don't think you're eligible right now for, the professional designation, please look at that application, jot you down some notes, use it as that career roadmap. Don't be in a silo. Don't think that you have to do this alone or go through this alone. There are plenty of mentors that are there willing to help you, myself and the other 35. Just take a moment to invest in yourself, even if your agency isn't willing to provide that financial investment in you. Think about long term, how you want to be perceived in the field and how much value this adds to that and how much intrinsic value that adds to yourself as well.
Great final thoughts, Ashley. Thank you very much. And I will add your contact information, your LinkedIn link, and an email address if anybody would like to contact you in regards to the certification or if they have any questions. Ashley, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.